Hello, everybody. It is Professor Parish, and welcome back to English 109. This week, we're going to be starting a new set of writing assignments and kind of continuing on with the class in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in to our assignments page. And as you'll see here, for week 6, I'm recording this a little bit early, so week 6 is still up at this time. You can see that if you've not done your grammar review or turned in your cause and effect paper, please do so by Sunday. The cause and effect paper, in fact, all of our papers are worth 50 points each. And so those 50 points can really affect your grade, either positively in helping them, or it can impact it in a negative way, which I don't want to happen to you. So please make sure that you do submit a cause and effect paper to this Dropbox. You will get a chance to revise our papers in this class, so you will get a chance to revise this paper as long as you submit it this Sunday. If you do not submit it by the end of week 6, you will not get a chance to revise. It's sort of an all or nothing deal. You either submit the paper and get a chance to revise it for a higher grade, or if you don't submit it, it's going to be a 0, and it's not going to change. So I don't want that to happen to you, so please make sure that you submit by this Sunday to the cause and effect Dropbox. And if you've not done the discussion forum or the Grammar 3 review, please make sure that you check out my week 6 video from last week and make sure that you watch that and get those assignments taken care of. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here on my assignments page to week 7. So we're getting closer to midterm. Week 7, we are going to start talking about a new type of writing, which is compare and contrast. I really like compare and contrast because I think it's easy. I think comparing and contrasting two things is pretty easy and simple to do. And we're going to talk about that. So as you can see here, your assignment reading-wise is to watch this video, which hopefully you're doing now. And then obviously in our English skills textbook, I do want you to look at chapter 11, which is the chapter on compare and contrast. It runs in the textbook from page 226 to 246. But obviously, even though there are 20 pages there, there's not going to be 20 pages of content. They have some example papers, some terminology, some pictures, things like that. And we are going to look at the compare and contrast guidelines as well. So the assignments for this week, we're not doing another textbook yet. We're going to hold off on our textbook activities. So if you're missing textbook activities, don't worry, we'll get back to them eventually. But we are going to continue looking at grammar. So I'm going to go ahead over here and open up our grammar assignment for this week. I do want to make a note that if you are having trouble finding a textbook, or for some reason you don't have the textbook at this stage of the game, there is a textbook available in our library and the Learning Commons. I actually went over there last week, checked it out. It is there. Now you can't take the textbook with you, but you can do this assignment at the computer while you're in the library. And this should be a pretty simple assignment, so it shouldn't take you too long to do. On page 450, it's activity number 6. You are going to write the word here that occurs before the semicolon that is needed in the sentence. And then you're going to put the semicolon and the word after it. So for example, and this is not right, so don't put this down. It's not the answer. I'm just making it up. You could have like people, comma, and something like that. But in the sentence, I want to know what's the word before the semicolon, show me the semicolon, and then the word after it. Basically, you don't have to rewrite the sentence. So that's activity 6. Activity number 7, you're going to write a semicolon and then the logical transition from the list in the box and write it for 1 through 5. So there'll be a list in the box. You pick one of them to put the semicolon and then what the transition would be afterwards. When you see it in the textbook, it'll make a lot of sense. And then the final activity is number 8, and you are just doing writing out the word before a semicolon or a comma, then the semicolon or comma, and finally the word after the sentence. So it's basically like this first activity, except now you have the option of a semicolon or a comma. And you may be asking yourselves, what is the difference? I will tell you. So with a semicolon and a comma, if you don't know what a semicolon is, it looks like this. This is a semicolon, not these dashes. That's a semicolon. It's right next to the L on your keyboard, and then a comma is directly under the L, and it's that. So what are the differences? Well, a comma, as we've talked about in our book, or as our book talks about, is used for listing things. I'm going to use a comma here because I'm making a list. Connecting two sentences, or for dialogue. It's a very basic grammatical tool. It helps us to organize the parts of our sentence, and it helps us to make sense of the language that we're using. So I will be the first to admit I get quote-unquote comma happy. I really like commas, so I have to sometimes control myself from using too many. But the idea is that they're to list, to connect, or to help create dialogue. A semicolon, on the other hand, is more of a stylistic choice. It is to take the place of a conjunction, and that is its main purpose. So, for example, I can come down here with a comma and say, I went to the store and got eggs, milk, and bread. And you can see that I'm using my comma to differentiate each item, okay? But if I was using a semicolon in this case, I would say this. I would say, I went to the store, got eggs, milk, and bread. You'll notice that my semicolon, all it did was take the place of and. It just took the place of it. Now, some of you may think that that looks really weird. You are correct. That is a very odd use for a semicolon. And I think the conjunction looks more appropriate there. But if I have two really complex sentences, or if I'm saying something like, she wasn't sure what to do, should she study, go to work, or skip it off? So you'll notice here that a conjunction may look odd there, like she wasn't sure what to do. Now I can make that its own sentence. Sure, I can do that. Like I said, the semicolon is a stylistic choice. Or I can include the semicolon here and connect these two sentences instead of making them two different ones. Again, these are all stylistic options, but a semicolon can be really helpful if you're writing, let's say, a paper in a class and you've noticed that you're using a lot of conjunctions like and, but, or, and you're like, man, I'm using these words a lot. A semicolon can be a nice alternative to give your paper some variety and also to kind of give yourself some variety if you're writing an exceptionally long piece of work. So again, all you're doing for this final one is just figuring out, do I use the semicolon here or a comma? And you can see here that the semicolon is just a stylistic way to connect two sentences without using and, but, or so, or any conjunction. The comma has much more duties. It can be a listing item, something to connect, like the semicolon, or it can be used in dialogue. So it's got a little more to do than a semicolon does. Okay? And our book talks more about semicolon versus comma usage in the actual pages before pages 452. I mean, pages 448 to 450 go over semicolons quite nicely. So I would recommend looking at that too. It will give you more examples and some more information. Okay, so that's our grammar review. And then our discussion forum for this week, week 7. If I go ahead and look at it, we do have a video after reading chapter 11. So I found this video after The Lion King was slated to come out, Disney's re-release of the animated classic into the live-action remake. And there was a lot of people saying that The Lion King is derivative of other works. Obviously, the one that's most notable is Shakespeare's Hamlet. If you've never read Hamlet, trust me, The Lion King covers basically all the plot points where, you know, the uncle kills the king, takes his place. Basically, Simba is Hamlet, except, spoilers, not everyone dies at the end like in Hamlet. It's a very Disney ending. But also, in the 1970s, it was pointed out that there was an animated show in Japan called Kimba, the White Lion. And a lot of people will be quick to point out that Simba just is Swahili for lion, I'm pretty sure, and that Kimba was just an alternate version of that. but there are quite a few similarities between the two. So this video link here is a short video, but it kind of covers those similarities between the two. So what I would like for you to do is to watch this quick video comparing and contrasting Kimba the White Lion to the Lion King. I chose this because it is comparing and contrasting. And then I want you to answer these 3 questions about the video for our discussion forum. So it's a nice little dive into comparison and contrast, and it will help you kind of get an idea of what I'm looking for when we talk about your next paper, which I'm about to go over. So yeah, the discussion forum, posts are due by Friday. At least 2 peer responses are due by Sunday. So that leaves us to our next paper. I know you've just finished cause and effect, but we are going to start talking about our next writing assignment, which is one I really like, and that is compare and contrast. So let me pull up the guidelines and show you all what those look like. Pull up here. So a compare and contrast, the idea behind it is that you are showing the similarities and differences of 2 different subjects. So you do need to have an introduction paragraph that will talk about the whole point of your assignment, what your topic is, the purpose, and what points you will discuss. You'll need body paragraphs that discuss your points, and then a conclusion where you summarize your topic and you can add a few sentences to resolve the paper. Just like our last cause and effect paper, this compare and contrast needs to be 3 full pages, double spaced. It can be longer if you want, and I will note that most students find that they do get to talking a little bit more about this paper in comparison with the cause and effect. So the breakdown, your intro and conclusion are worth 10 points, body paragraphs are 20, spelling, grammar is 15, and your page length and formatting is 5. So 50 points altogether. The idea behind a compare and contrast is that you're just finding 2 things that have similarities and differences. So some examples I've had students do in the past, I've had students compare and contrast high school with college. That's an easy one. I've had a student write a really cool paper comparing when they worked for a union job versus a non-union job. That was really interesting. There were a lot of things I didn't realize were similar and different about them. I've had students write about their experiences working between 2 jobs, working as a babysitter versus at a convenience store. I've had students write about the differences between showing cows and showing pigs. There's similarities and differences by far. I've had students write lots of different compare and contrasts. The big thing is that you want something that, one, will give you enough content to write about. So if you're telling me that you're going to write about Captain Crunch versus Boo Berry, I don't think there's enough similarities and differences between 2 cereal types to give you 3 pages. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say probably not. So you need to have a topic that will give you enough content to reach 3 pages or more, and you have to have 2 topics that have similarities and have differences. So I've had students compare trucks versus cars and driving them, and you can talk about that in your paper. There's just a lot of things you can focus on, and if you really are, having writer's block and not being able to think of a topic, I would go to Google or a search engine and just look up compare and contrast topics, and you're going to get a plethora of examples to go off of. All right? But as far as what this writing assignment is, it's exactly the same as what we did for cause and effect. I just want to know, and it's stated here, I want an outline, which you can construct looking something like this, and I want to know what your 2 subjects are that you're going to compare and contrast. And I'll let you know if the subjects will work or not. If you're torn between 2 different ideas, you can just list both of them, and I'll let you know if they work or not. All right? But I do think that compared with cause and effect, this paper is a little bit easier to organize for students, and it should be more fun. Or at least I think it is. Some would disagree, but I think this is a fun paper theme that you can write about. And you can always email me if you have questions. All right? So those are our assignments for this week. Like I said, make sure for week 6 that you have your cause and effect paper turned in and that you've done your grammar review and your discussion forum. And then for this coming week, we have this grammar review, which, again, everybody's been doing good on the grammar reviews as long as you do them. So those of you that have done them have done well. So just keep up the good work. The discussion forums, those of you that do them, keep doing them because your posts have been great and so have your responses. And then I'm eager to see what you choose to write about for the compare and contrast. So I'm excited to read your cause and effect papers, and I'm excited to see what you choose to do for paper number 2. If you have questions, just let me know. But otherwise, have a great weekend and week, and I will talk to you all again soon.